Welcome everyone to BeFit Foods February Challenge. So it's great to have you here today. This session is being recorded, so you're welcome to join live. And if you can't stay with us for the whole session, then we will send you the recording afterwards. So today I'd like to introduce Wendy, who's one of our dietitians at BeFit Food. And Wendy will be taking you through today's presentation, and I will be staying online to answer any questions you might have at the end of the session. So thanks again, and we will get started.
Hi everyone. My name is Wendy. So I'm one of the dietitians from BeFit Food, as Kate mentioned before. So I'm just going to share the presentation that we have prepared for today. So just let me know if you guys can see my screen, and we should be all good to proceed once that's ready. Everything all good? Yeah, perfect. So welcome to week 1 of the 28-day challenge. So today we're focusing on one of the most misunderstood aspects of health, which is metabolism. So when people talk about metabolism, they often describe it as fast or as slow. But in reality, metabolism is simply the collection of processes that help our body turn food into energy. It's the engine inside of you that keeps you alive, and it powers your brain, your muscles, your organs, and every single cell in your body. So in today's session, we're going to break down metabolism into some simple concepts so that you understand what it is, what affects it, what slows it down, and how the 28-day challenge is specifically designed to assist it. By the end of the session, you'll have the tools and also the knowledge you need to start improving your metabolic health immediately. So here is our overview for today. So firstly, we'll define what metabolism is in a clear and practical way. So not just the scientific definition, but what it means essentially for your daily life, your energy, your weight, and also your long-term health. Secondly, we'll have a look at what influences your metabolism. So things such as physical activity, your hormones, your nutrition, and even your stress and sleep, and basically the interrelationship between all of these and how that affects our metabolic rate. Thirdly, we'll explore the most common causes of a slow metabolism. So these are things that many people experience without realizing they're affecting their body's ability to burn energy efficiently. And lastly, we'll talk about how the 28-day challenge is structured to specifically support metabolic health through our meal design, our structured eating plan, and also our lifestyle habits that we promote, such as movement and sleeping. Everything you'll learn today will tie directly back into the practical steps and you'll be taking throughout the challenge. So when we talk about metabolism, we're basically talking about 3 key functions: converting food into energy, regulating the body's ability to burn energy, and also providing energy to our body cells. So when we talk about converting food into energy, basically this refers to every single time that you eat, your body actually breaks that food down into energy or into fuel. So whether that's carbs or protein or fat, your body basically decides how that fuel is used, whether it's used immediately, stored for later, or burned when you're resting. When we talk about regulating the body's ability to burn energy, this refers to how your metabolism determines how many calories you burn when you're essentially not moving or resting. So that means when you're sitting, when you're sleeping, or even just relaxing on the couch, this is what's called the resting metabolic rate. And that is influenced heavily by things like muscle mass, hormones, and also genetics. And when we talk about providing energy to body cells, basically our cells need constant energy to stay alive and to function, and also to repair and grow. So a healthy metabolism ensures that our body has a steady, balanced supply of energy, and that doesn't result in spikes, crashes, or ongoing fatigue. So basically, in simple terms, metabolism is the way your body manages, uses, and also burns energy. And the healthy metabolism feels essentially like stable energy, stable moods, and also good sleep and better mental clarity. So there are some things that influence our metabolism. So again, we'll break them down. But essentially, it is important to address the fact that metabolism is not fixed and it constantly adapts based on the body's current environment. So one of the things that does influence our metabolism is our activity levels. So movement is one of the biggest drivers of metabolism. The more you move throughout the day, even if it's low intensity movement like walking around, the more energy your body actually burns. And activity also improves your muscle mass and your sensitivity to insulin, which both help to support metabolism. With age, that's something that's obviously out of our control, but as we age, metabolism naturally slows down due to hormonal shifts and also muscle mass reducing. So lifestyle choices can slow or significantly accelerate this process, but the good news is that age makes things harder, but it doesn't make it impossible to actually improve your metabolism. With our food intake, your body needs enough nutrients to run your metabolism properly. So long-term dieting or skipping meals, eating poor quality foods, or having a low nutritional quality in your diet, this can actually signal your body to conserve energy and also essentially slow down your metabolic rate. With hormones, they are the messengers that tell your metabolism what to do. So stress hormones, thyroid hormones, insulin is also a hormone, even your reproductive hormones like estrogen and progesterone, they all play a major role. So small imbalances can actually lead to big metabolic changes. With muscle mass, muscle helps us burn energy even when we're resting. So the more muscle you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate. So this is why strength training will become very important as we age. And with sleep quality, poor sleep does play a role in disrupting our hormones that regulate hunger, cravings, stress, and also our blood sugar. So one night of bad sleep can actually change how your body uses energy the next day. And with stress, chronic stress can obviously increase our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. And cortisol actually plays a direct role in raising blood sugar levels, increasing appetite, and also encouraging fat storage, especially around our midsection. So essentially, this all ties back into that heading there of metabolism not being fixed and actually constantly adapting based on the environment that you create. In terms of what can cause a slow metabolism, so there's things such as stress, hormonal changes, inflammation, insulin resistance, low muscle mass, long-term dieting, and poor sleep. Some of these things, or if not most of those things, I actually already alluded to in the previous slide, but I'll go a little bit more in depth into understanding why these key factors actually cause a slow metabolism. So with high stress levels, when our cortisol or our stress hormone is elevated, our body can enter a bit of a conservation mode, essentially. So it will tend to hold onto energy, and that can increase our appetite and also slow down our fat burning processes as well. So that's why stress management is a really, really important lifestyle factor when it comes to improving your metabolism. With hormonal changes, we've already discussed or alluded to things such as menopause, reproductive issues, thyroid issues, even menstruation as well. So these hormone shifts essentially impact how the body stores and burns energy. With inflammation, chronic inflammation can actually disrupt our cells' function. So this can actually make it harder for the body to use energy efficiently. And inflammation is also a direct contributor to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance specifically is a condition that reduces the body's ability to manage blood sugar. And as a result of the instability in your blood sugar levels, this can lead to more fat storage and also lower energy levels as well, which means that we can sometimes compensate by actually eating food. With low muscle mass, less muscle mass often refers to fewer calories being burned at resting rate. So as I mentioned before, this is one of the biggest contributors to a slower metabolism when it comes to aging, because as you age, naturally you do lose a bit of muscle mass, and also long-term dieting as well. So yo-yo dieting or long-term low-calorie diets and restrictive eating actually teach the body to slow down in order to conserve energy. And this is why people often regain weight quite easily after doing some sort of fad diet or yo-yo diet. And a slow metabolism basically is rarely caused by one of these things. It's generally caused by a combination of several factors. So it could be one or more of these factors that are impacting your metabolic rate. So, in terms of what can cause a slow metabolism, we're now going to delve into a few sort of, I guess, clinical conditions or medical conditions, just to have a bit more of an understanding of, I guess, what is essentially contributing to that slow metabolism. So, with the first condition, we will be discussing menopause, which is essentially the period in a woman's life where menstruation ceases permanently for a minimum of 12 months. So, during menopause, there's obviously a few things that occur. So, estrogen drops are obviously the most obvious one. So, that hormone estrogen plays a role in regulating where our fat is stored, how insulin works, and also how efficiently your body burns energy. So, when your levels do drop as a result of heading into menopause, the body can become more prone to storing fat, especially around the midsection. And as a result of these storage shifts in our body fat, before menopause, women actually tend to store fat more so around the hips and thighs. And after menopause, this fat is often shifted to the belly area or the midsection area. And this is often hormonally driven and is not always simply just about calories as well. In terms of muscle mass decline, so again, with aging, with menopause, women will also naturally lose muscle mass with age, but menopause can accelerate this process as well. And as I've mentioned before, lower muscle mass can result in a lower resting metabolic rate. And with insulin sensitivity, this is also hormonally driven, but can also be driven by inflammation as well. And this means the body becomes less efficient at processing sugars, which leads to those increased cravings and potential weight gain as well. And with these changes, these are all very, very frustrating, understandably, but they're absolutely manageable, especially with strength training, some protein-rich meals, and also some lifestyle habits that support metabolism. So next, we'll talk about thyroid function, which is one of the most important regulators of our metabolism. So the thyroid is essentially a small butterfly-shaped gland in your neck, in this sort of area here, but it plays a big role in your overall energy balance. So our thyroid hormones help to regulate our metabolic rate, our temperature, and also our energy production. So thyroid hormones essentially determine how quickly your body uses energy. So when the thyroid hormones are low, everything essentially slows down. So things like digestion, your energy production, fat burning processes, even your brain function and your concentration levels can also be impacted. So when people have an underactive thyroid, they can often feel very fatigued and sluggish, very cold, and they can also have difficulty losing weight as well. And with temperature regulation, so I've already alluded to the fact that when you have an underactive thyroid, you can have a feeling of feeling quite cold very easily. The thyroid actually helps to maintain your body's internal temperature. So if your thyroid is not producing enough of the hormones, you may end up feeling cold all the time or notice your extremities, like your hands or your feet, actually stay cold, even when others are actually complaining about it being hot or feeling very warm. And with energy production, every single cell in the body actually relies on thyroid hormones to produce energy. So a slower thyroid or a lower thyroid hormone count essentially means that your cells operate at a lower speed or a slower speed, and then that can contribute to that sluggishness or that fatigue and brain fog. Your thyroid relies on a few nutrients: iodine, selenium, zinc, and iron. So iodine is used to create thyroid hormones, and without enough iodine or an iodine deficiency, that production of those hormones drop. It's typically found in a lot of seafood products, also in seaweed, and also in salt, if it's fortified with iodine. So it can become, I think it's marketed as iodized salt in the supermarket, but intake of iodine has decreased due to essentially modern low salt diets as a result. And also with people not having enough adequate consumption of fish and seafood. Selenium is another mineral which helps to convert our T4 hormone into the active form, which is T3. So T4 is an inactive thyroid hormone. T3 is the active thyroid hormone. And without enough selenium, even if your body is producing adequate amounts of these hormones, your body can't use it efficiently or effectively if it's not in its active form. And zinc is important for immunity and also for hormone conversion. And a deficiency in this can often lead to low energy levels, reduced metabolism, and also hair loss is a common sign. And iron is also needed to help produce thyroid hormones and also to transport oxygen to your cells. So low iron levels, especially common in women, can often mimic thyroid symptoms as well. So when the thyroid is underactive or when these nutrients are low, metabolism can potentially slow down as well. So aging, as I've already alluded to multiple times, can be a significant contributor to a slow metabolism. But remember, these changes with aging are not your fault and they're definitely out of our control as well. But understanding, I guess, the reason why these changes occur and why they reflect in a slower metabolism can help us make better lifestyle choices. So with hormonal shifts, as we age, hormones like DHEA or growth hormone, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone naturally will decline. And these are the hormones that play major roles in maintaining muscle mass, also our fat distribution and our energy production as well. So lower levels essentially make it easier to gain fat and harder or more difficult to build or maintain muscle mass. With mitochondria inefficiency, the mitochondria, maybe you've learned this in high school, you remember your biology teacher telling you, but it is a powerhouse of the cell. But basically, it is essentially, yeah, the little factories of energy inside your cells. And over time, they become less efficient at producing energy with age. And this is one of the key reasons why you may end up feeling a bit more tired or find something like physical activity more challenging than before. And sarcopenia, which is essentially the loss of muscle mass, this actually starts occurring around the age of 30. So adults actually lose about 3 to 8% of their muscle mass each decade, and the rate will gradually accelerate after the age of 50. So less muscle mass, slower metabolism, and hence why strength training is incredibly important as we age. In terms of the loss of muscle mass, so muscle obviously increases your resting metabolic rate. So it is what we call a metabolically active tissue. So that means it burns energy even when you are not moving. And if you increase your muscle mass, you can actually directly increase the number of calories your body is burning when it's resting. Muscle is also responsible for storing glucose. So that means that muscle can act as a bit of a sponge for glucose in your bloodstream. So glucose being sugar. When you have more muscle, your body can actually store and use the sugar more efficiently for energy. So that's why when you have higher muscle mass, you can actually help support steadier energy levels and also minimize insulin resistance as well. So when your muscles are active, because they're pulling sugar out of your bloodstream without needing much insulin, this actually reduces the strain on the pancreas and lowers the risk of something like insulin resistance. And also as well, in terms of supporting hormonal balance, strength training and also maintaining lean muscle mass helps to support the healthy hormone production, such as stress hormones, reproductive hormones, and also hormones responsible for our metabolism. So as a result, a higher muscle mass typically is reflected in more stability in your appetite, your mood, and also your energy levels. So nutrient deficiencies are also a contributor to slow metabolism as well. If key nutrients are missing, your metabolism simply cannot function at its fullest capacity. So some of the most important ones are listed here on the screen. Iodine, as we've discussed with the thyroid hormones, they're obviously responsible for making thyroid hormones. And obviously that is important for regulating your metabolism. And as a result of not producing enough of the thyroid hormones, this can directly lead to reduced energy levels and also potentially weight gain as well. With iron, I've already mentioned that as well earlier. It's responsible for carrying oxygen to the cells, leading to greater energy levels and potentially also greater capacity to partake in physical activity. With magnesium, This is a mineral that's very important for supporting our blood sugar regulation and also our energy production. And it's actually a mineral that's involved in about, I think, over 300 reactions in our body, many of which are related to energy metabolism. So definitely magnesium is a very important mineral because you can imagine there's 300 different bodily processes that require magnesium. So if you are deficient in magnesium or not consuming enough of it, you are essentially impacting most of those 300 reactions occurring in your body. And selenium, I've already discussed in relation to the thyroid hormone. And with B12, this is responsible for converting food into energy. So low B12 levels can actually also mimic iron deficiency symptoms in some individuals as well, in terms of that feeling of fatigue and weakness. So it's also a nutrient or a vitamin that's particularly important for vegetarians and vegans as well. So a lot of vegans may already be taking a B12 supplement, or potentially they may be using even B12 infusions if they are quite deficient as well. And vitamin D is actually a hormone, not a vitamin, but low levels of this actually increase inflammation and they can actually reduce insulin sensitivity. So aside from being important for calcium absorption and osteoporosis prevention, vitamin D is actually playing an important role in insulin regulation and also in our metabolism. So with nutrient-dense meals, essentially like those included in the 28-day challenge through BeFit Food, this can actually help to address these deficiencies and also support our metabolism at the cellular level because we focus on whole foods, not processed foods. With physical activity, we can have a look at how this impacts metabolism. So many people actually will think that, I guess, inactivity only affects weight, but in reality, physical inactivity actually affects your metabolism as well. So with physical inactivity, it has a direct impact on increasing inflammation markers in our body. So movement actually acts like a bit of a pump for the lymphatic system, which helps us to remove a lot of waste products and also inflammatory compounds as well. So when we're not moving regularly, these inflammatory markers can actually build up and they can actually slow down our metabolic processes, making it more difficult for our body to burn energy. And with the mitochondria, I've already mentioned that it's the powerhouse of the cell, but essentially exercise actually encourages the mitochondria to grow and to divide, so essentially almost reproduce. And as a result of more mitochondria in our body, that actually helps us to produce more energy. So when you are physically inactive, the mitochondria count can actually reduce and your mitochondria actually end up becoming a bit more sluggish as well. So that reduces the amount of energy that your body can produce, meaning that you end up feeling quite fatigued, sluggish, and maybe also have a bit of low motivation to partake in physical activity. With reduced insulin sensitivity, so physical inactivity can lead to insulin resistance. So that means that your cells don't respond as well to insulin. So higher insulin often equals more fat storage as well, especially around the hormones. So it's important for us to keep active because our cells actually respond better to insulin as a result of physical activity. And with the reduction in muscle mass, physical inactivity is one of the quickest ways for us to lose muscle. And because muscle burns energy even when we are resting, losing it essentially slows down your metabolic rate. So this makes everyday activities essentially feel a lot more difficult and a lot more harder. Something like climbing the stairs or just carrying the groceries from our car to our house can actually feel a lot more labor intensive. And as a result, that loss in muscle mass actually can create a bit of a domino effect where lower energy levels can actually lead to less movement. So yes, the positive news in this sense is that even something like walking or a short strength session with body weight, doing body weight exercises or using light dumbbells can actually reactivate your metabolism because you're promoting physical activity. And with sleep, this has a direct impact on a lot of our hormones. So our hunger hormones, particularly, actually change as a result of sleep deprivation. So ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, tells your brain that you're hungry. And leptin is a hormone that tells your brain that you're full. So poor sleep actually increases ghrelin and decreases leptin, meaning that you can end up feeling hungrier, craving more food, and you can end up feeling less satisfied as well after eating. So this can actually be a direct contributor to overeating and making your appetite more difficult to control. With the stress hormones, a lack of sleep can directly raise your cortisol levels as well. And as I've mentioned before, chronically elevated cortisol can lead to abdominal fat retention and also an increased appetite and cravings for calorie dense and also high sugar foods. Insulin sensitivity also as well can reduce. And then also, as I've mentioned as well, that has a direct impact on our food cravings. So by improving our sleep quality, even by about 30 to 60 minutes a night, this can dramatically improve our metabolism, our energy, mood, and even our appetite as well. And with stress, with the cortisol levels, basically cortisol is, well, essentially a stress hormone, which is produced in that sort of fight or flight scenario. So it has been designed biologically to give us a bit of quick energy in stressful situations. So it tells our liver to start releasing sugar into the bloodstream to prepare you for that fight or flight, like I said. But when stress is occasional, that's harmless. But when stress becomes chronic and an everyday thing that you're dealing with, this means that cortisol stays elevated, which means that essentially your blood sugar levels can also remain elevated as well. So with chronically elevated cortisol, this can lead to disrupted sleep because high cortisol at nighttime makes it more difficult to stay asleep and fall asleep because that sugar is acting as energy in our body. So this essentially starts a bit of a domino effect where stress affects sleep and sleep affects our metabolism. Higher insulin levels as well are a direct impact of high cortisol levels because of the blood sugar impact. Increased abdominal fat occurs as well as a result of the higher insulin levels, and then the increased cravings as well. So stress management is not just about emotional well-being, it's actually a core part of our metabolic health. And some small daily practices in terms of relaxation techniques or meditation can actually make a significant difference in our cortisol levels. And insulin resistance is essentially one of the most common metabolic issues affecting adults today. And many people often don't realize that they have it because they don't really recognize the symptoms, or the symptoms can actually be quite vague in their sense. So with insulin resistance, this occurs when the cells stop responding properly to insulin. So insulin's job is to essentially transport sugar into the cells for energy. And when the cells become resistant to that, the body will overcompensate by producing more insulin. And then that leads to higher insulin levels and over time, higher blood sugar levels and increased fat storage. So some of the most common symptoms, and as you can see, some of these are also quite vague as well and may be related to other types of conditions, but things like brain fog. So the fluctuating blood sugar can affect our concentration and our mental clarity. Cravings for sugars and carbs because your cells are not receiving energy efficiently in the form of sugar, and your brain thinks you essentially need more quick fuel. Difficulty losing weight is caused by the high insulin levels blocking our fat burning pathways. Fatigue after meals occurs as a result of blood sugar levels rising and falling too quickly, resulting in the energy crashes. And the waist circumference occurs as a result of the insulin resistance showing up as that abdominal fat. So also as well, fatty liver is another common condition that can cause a slow metabolism as well. So it's divided into two forms, non-alcoholic and alcoholic fatty liver disease. In this presentation, I'll only be speaking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is essentially the accumulation of fat in the liver cells. And that's typically driven by lifestyle factors, such as a sedentary lifestyle, poor quality diet, and then also as well some other conditions such as insulin resistance or high blood sugar that are contributing to that. So the liver actually is responsible for supporting metabolism. And when you have a fatty liver, your liver function is impaired. So that means that the liver can become less efficient at breaking down fat, leading to increased fat storage in the body. The liver can also, a fatty liver, I should say, can also release inflammatory signals, which disrupt our hormones and our metabolism, as inflammation is a big driver for impaired metabolic rate. And also as well, because the liver is also crucial in regulating blood sugar, fatty liver can make it much more difficult to maintain balanced blood sugar and also balanced insulin levels as well. So that can lead to further metabolic damage. So the good news is with fatty liver, it's often reversible with physical activity and also a healthy diet with reduced sugar and alcohol intake. So the 28-day challenge is essentially designed to intentionally support metabolic reset. And our 28-day challenge focuses on a high protein diet with a low carb structure and a low sugar approach. So essentially, we want a high protein intake because protein helps us to boost our metabolism, and also your body burns energy digesting it. And it also helps us to stabilize our blood sugar levels to keep us feeling fuller and longer, and also helps us to support our muscle mass as well. Because as we know, muscle is a very important factor in maintaining our metabolic rate. And with the low carb structure of our meals, reducing the carbohydrates and in particular processed carbs help us to lower our insulin levels and stabilize our blood sugars as well. And this can encourage our body to move from a fat storage mode into a fat burning mode, where we start to prioritize body fat as the body's main energy source. And with a low sugar approach, so similar thing to the low carb approach, obviously it helps us stabilize our sugar levels, but it also helps us to stop the insulin spikes that may occur as a result of added sugar in the meals. So with our nutrient-dense meals, this helps us to correct some of the nutritional deficiencies that affect our metabolic rate, like magnesium, iodine, selenium, etc. And then also as well, we encourage structured eating. So eating at regular intervals helps us to regulate our hunger hormones and also prevent that blood sugar drop that leads to overeating. And most importantly, our meals are also portion controlled, which helps you take the guesswork out of estimating what is the right requirements for you. So essentially, these are the key lifestyle strategies that help us to improve metabolism over time. We have to prioritize our protein to support muscle mass retention and to keep us feeling full and keep our blood sugar stable. Moving daily is also important because that helps us to improve our insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Strength training is also extremely important because building muscle is one of the most effective strategies to improve your metabolic rate. Sleeping well or improving our sleep quality helps us to regulate our hunger hormones and also helps us to improve our appetite control. And also managing stress, because managing stress essentially is something that will have a direct impact on our metabolic function through a variety of different pathways. But also stress doesn't just affect how you feel. Like I said, it affects how your body uses energy. And also reducing alcohol, because as a substance, alcohol directly interferes with our fat burning processes, sleep quality, and also our blood sugar regulation. So these 6 lifestyle strategies are small steps, essentially, with big payoffs. So to summarize everything that I've covered today, metabolism is adaptable. It's not fixed and it's not broken, and it is responsive to essentially your habits, your environment, and also your health status as well. Most of these barriers are reversible. So things like insulin resistance, fatty liver, and even things like age-related metabolic slowdown, like reduced muscle mass. These are all things that you can actually improve with the right approach to your lifestyle. And also a bit cheesy, but I think it's a phrase that a lot of us have heard a lot, but small habits do create big changes over time. So it's important to not feel the pressure to overhaul your life overnight. And essentially, consistent supportive habits like improving your sleep, increasing your protein, moving a bit more, managing your stress. These are all strategies which over time have an accumulative effect and will definitely pay off in terms of improving your metabolism. All right, so I will open the floor to, I guess, some questions if anyone has them. You're more than welcome to ask any questions about some of the topics that we've covered, like the hormones or the nutrition, anything related even to the 28-day challenge or Be Fit Food meals. So yeah, feel free to ask, and there's no silly questions at all.
Thank you, Wendy. So if anyone's got any questions, pop them in the chat box there. So what type of exercise is recommended to boost metabolism? the most important thing you can do during any weight loss is really strength-based training. The reason for this being that if you can maintain lean body mass, then when you achieve your goal weight or you get closer to your goal weight, you'll actually have a higher metabolic rate. And if you lose weight, and you would have seen the statistics around this, perhaps with people being on GLP-1s that have not been given the correct advice about consuming the right amounts of protein and exercising, particularly strength training, you'll find that with that weight loss, they're losing 40 to 60% muscle mass. So the only way to really prevent that weight regain after weight loss is to maintain your lean body mass, which really means quite a structured effort in terms of 3 times a week strength training, and it can be your own body weight training. So you can be doing squats, lunges, push-ups against the wall, and just progressively overloading the body. So as you get stronger, challenging yourself a little bit further. So you want that progressive overload every week, and also having a really good protein intake at every meal. So we talk about with BeFit Food a carb to protein ratio of at least 1:1, meaning that the protein is always at the same amount in grams as the carbohydrate, or even higher. So for example, in one of our meals, let's pick like the beef madras off the top of my head, is around 30 grams of protein, and the carbohydrate content is under 20 grams. Therefore, it's about a 1.5:1 when it comes to how much protein there is compared to carbohydrate, or the reverse, where it's actually less than 1. So a really quick, easy example would be a tub of yogurt. So if you pick up a fruit-flavoured, high-sugar yogurt, you'll see the carbohydrates might be around 30 grams, the protein might be around 5 to 10 grams. So that'd be a 6:1 carbohydrate at 30, protein at 5 grams, carb to protein ratio, which is very promoting of weight gain. Whereas if you pick up a yogurt that's a high protein, low carb yogurt, it might have 5 grams of carbohydrate to 15 grams of protein, which makes it 0.33 basically, so well under 1. So if you keep that rule, a carb to protein ratio of 1:1 or more protein than carbohydrate on anything that you eat, it's really protective of your lean body mass. It'll keep you feeling full for longer, and it'll help with that metabolic rate so that when you're losing weight, you're preserving your muscle mass as well. So what are the best times to eat meals and snacks? The main thing is you really want to have gaps between your meals, because this is where your body is actually going into a state of mild nutritional ketosis, which is a fat burning state. So I would encourage you to have your meals and snacks together. So if you're someone who likes something sweet after a meal, have your chili con carne, have your protein ball or your low carb cookie or whatever it might be. Or if you're someone who is exercising, and if you're doing a decent workout, you might want to have the snacks around the workout. So then it is separate to your meal times, but it will offset catch-up hunger. Because sometimes after we exercise, it suppresses appetite for a couple of hours, but then we get this insatiable hunger, particularly if we've done a really hard workout. So sometimes actually timing your snacks around your exercise is a good way to curb your appetite so that you can actually wait until you get to the next meal without having something else in between. So what if I'm still hungry after meals? Am I allowed to eat anything else on the program? So what we recommend with all of the BeFit Food meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner where you can, if you can include some low starch veggies or salads with the meals, and that could be as simple as when you have your eggs for breakfast in the morning, so Spanish eggs, French eggs, 5 veg eggs, actually have an extra cut up tomato, or if you've got time and maybe you're throwing it in the pan, you could mix in some extra mushrooms or baby spinach or asparagus or something like that. Breakfast, most people are time poor, so it's a tough one to get your veggies in, but you could have a carrot in the car when you're driving to work. But when it comes to lunch and dinner, the quickest, easiest way to do this is either buy the really cheap, frozen, diced up veggies from the supermarket. It'll cost you a few dollars a bag, and just pour a cup of those, put them in the microwave, heat them up with your meal. and try and bulk out the meal that way, so you've got some extra fibre. But the main reason why we're bulking out the meals with the veggies and salads is because it will increase your eating window for how long you're eating for. And this is important because our hunger hormones get triggered at around that sort of 20-minute mark in terms of when our brain detects the stretching of the stomach. So when we eat, our stomach stretches and it sends a message to shut off appetite. But if we've eaten our meal in 30 seconds, we've got 19 and a half minutes before the brain's going to know that we're full. So if you can eat slowly and have salads, have low-starch veggies with your meal, you'll eat over a longer period of time and you'll fill that gap until your body tells you that you're full. Or the other thing is, eat your food but walk straight after the meal. That's got a double benefit. The first one is you're filling in that extra time to get to 20 minutes to suppress appetite. But the second one is if you walk after a meal, you actually reduce your blood sugar level spikes by 50%. So this means your insulin, which is your fat storage hormone, will be 50% less. So you will not store fat after meals. So you're really helping with good blood sugar level control and good body fat control. So they say just 10 minutes walk after every meal can have that effect on metabolism, which is really important. How does, we've skipped, we've got a few here. Do I need to follow the program perfectly to see results? Great question. So as you can imagine, we've seen tens of thousands of people do the program over the last 11 years. And it's really interesting when people come to us and go, I've done BeFit Food 5 or 10 times, but last time I actually cut out all of the extra lattes. I didn't have my, skinny cow, low cal snack after dinner, and on weekends I didn't sneak in something extra. People get unbelievably better results when they're 100% compliant. So this particular couple, the husband was telling me the story, him and his wife have done it many times, and his wife will lose around 3.5 kilos in 14 days, and he will lose around 5 or 6 kilos. He goes, I thought that was great. My wife hated me because I lost double the weight, and I felt like I was cheating. I was still having my lattes and, a couple of little extra bits. However, he said, I did it for the first time recently without having anything else. I had black coffees. After dinner, I just had herbal teas. I had my protein snack, but I didn't eat off the menu. I stuck to the recommended extras. He lost 9.2 kilos in the same 14 days, and he had done that program many, many times over the decade. So if you want really good results, you need to be 100% compliant. If you're okay with just losing a few kilos and getting into better eating habits, you will still get results. You just won't hit the maximum results. And probably the key thing to remember here is compensation. So if for some reason you go off, think about a 3-hour rule. So we used to partner with Tiff Exo or Tiff Hall, and she would always say to her challenges, think about resetting every 3 hours. So just because you had one bad meal doesn't mean it's a bad day or a bad week. So you reset every 3 hours. So no matter what happens, don't think like you've ruined the day or whatever it is. The next meal, just keep on track. Now, in terms of compensating for that, if you go for an extra walk, so set yourself a goal of trying to get your 10,000 steps a day, but even if you're only hitting 5,000 to 7,000 steps a day, go and increase those steps by another 3,000 to 4,000 steps or another 2 to 3 kilometres. You'll probably burn off whatever extra that you have and you've immediately compensated. So that'll really help with getting the results. So exercise on its own doesn't really result in weight loss. So if you're on the program and you're not exercising, it won't stop your weight loss, but it will not help metabolism and it won't help with long-term maintenance because you're less likely to only lose body fat. You could lose some muscle as well. So any exercise you can do is good for long-term muscle health and long-term lifestyle changes. And also the exercise is the best way to compensate as well. How does alcohol impact metabolism? Right, I'll go into this really quickly, but basically when you take in alcohol, your liver has a special switch which switches this alcohol dehydrogenase hormone on, basically, or enzyme. And what that does is it breaks down alcohol. When that's turned on, it's like a PowerPoint switch that is either on or off. Your fat burning turns off. So if there is any alcohol in your bloodstream, until it hits 0, you'll store anything that you eat as body fat until that alcohol is down to 0, then that fat burning switch will come back on. So if you are drinking during this period, it's very hard to exclusively burn body fat. So it will set you back. So once again, if it's occasional, go out and do the extra steps, and that will make a difference. Get your body straight back into that fat burning mode. You can actually walk off the alcohol. You've got alcohol 7 calories per gram, fat's 9 calories per gram. But carbohydrate and protein are only 4 calories per gram. So alcohol is very dense in terms of energy. So it's just as hard to burn off as it is burning off body fat almost. So get out there and just do a big walk if you've had some alcohol, and just sort of clear it out of your system, get your metabolism burning body fat again. I'll only answer a couple more, and then we will get back to people individually. So my food doesn't arrive until later this week. Can I start when it arrives? Absolutely. So just keep your program going for longer at the end of it. In the short term, though, what I'd suggest doing just to make it a little bit easier on yourself is thinking about that 1-to-1 carb to protein ratio. If you start practicing that now, you'll get in good habit, and it'll be much, much easier once the food does arrive to kind of really adapt to the smaller portions. Maybe even now start prepping, making sure you've got at home, whether it's fresh veggies, frozen veggies, bags of salad, anything that bulks out your meal, and practice that with the meals for the next couple of days, trying to have extra veggies and salads with the meals to bulk it out, having your protein, and just keeping the carbs at that 1-to-1 ratio or less. So carbohydrate does drive appetite, and it drives insulin, the fat storage hormone. So the quicker you lower the carbohydrate, the quicker you start burning body fat. So it doesn't mean you can't have it at all, and small amounts are good because it's tied to fiber and all the things we need, but being mindful that it will blunt your fat burning response as well. And last couple, I have celiac disease, have previously been advised to eat salmon twice a week. I was considering doing this as a substitute to the protein balls. If I did this twice a week, is that enough, or should I substitute more? Absolutely fine. So yeah, definitely have the salmon, the omega-3s, they're nice and anti-inflammatory. You can definitely substitute a BeFit food meal for a protein with your low starch veggies and salads. So grab that recommended extras list that comes from the user guide that's on our website, or the helpful resources section, or we can email it to you as well. You may have actually ordered one with your program, so then you'll get a printed copy in your book. It'll be under in the delivery box underneath the silver liner once you pull all your food out. In that booklet as well, there's sort of 2 pages of all these recommended veggies and salads to have. The reason for that is you can eat them more or less unlimited. And if you're eating things that are not on that list, just restrict them a little bit. So it just means they're obviously slightly higher in carbohydrates than the ones that are in this list. Yeah, definitely having the salmon is great. Is that enough, or should I substitute more? Look, you could have the salmon as a protein snack as well. So as you mentioned, replace the protein balls with the protein snack, have the salmon in between. So the protein on its own is not going to stall or inhibit your results. So any tinned fish, really, if you're hungry and you're snacking on tinned fish, that is not going to affect your results whatsoever. If you're doing some exercise, it's probably going to aid in actually keeping that muscle mass as well. So not an issue at all. And last question, how do I know if I have impaired thyroid function? There's lots and lots of signs and symptoms, but the quickest way is just to check in with your GP. And if you haven't had your blood test done in the last 12 months for all of your standard things, so standard things to me would mean your cholesterol, which is your HDL and LDL, the good and the bad, or it's not good and bad so much anymore, but it just is what it is. Your triglycerides, which is the amount of fat in your blood, and that tends to go up if you've got a bit of insulin resistance, because your carbohydrate or your glucose gets pushed into your fat stores and shows up then in your triglycerides in your bloodstream. Thyroid stimulating hormone is like a basic test that your GP would probably do with your bloods every year. And then if that's sort of out of range, then they may do the T3 and T4, which are your active and inactive forms of your thyroid hormone. They might also do a liver function test, and that's a good way to see if there's any signs of fatty liver. And one of the main reasons BeFit Food was actually created was to reverse fatty liver, and it does it in as quickly as sort of 2 weeks in the majority of people. Some people that have got a history of fatty liver, it might take up to 6 weeks, but it is the quickest way you can possibly reduce fatty liver. General healthy eating, general exercise doesn't change fatty liver very quickly, whereas our programs do. And that's because of the science of them being what they call a VLED, a very low energy diet. So they very quickly shrink the liver. The side effect of that is once the liver's working better, you've also probably taken fat off the pancreas, which actually is for our insulin, which is our fat storage hormones. That works better as well. So fatty liver is definitely a contributor to poor metabolism, and that will be resolved very quickly in really 2 weeks. Other blood tests might be what they call UNEs, which is urea and electrolytes, looking at kidney function, and they might do a full blood examination just to sort of look if there's any inflammatory markers or anything sort of out of range. They might do homocysteine, which is a non-specific marker of inflammation, or CRP, which is another inflammatory marker. There's things that are just worth kind of knowing. If you're not feeling right or something, joints are inflamed, then they may be extra things that they look at as well. All right, so any other questions, feel free to email us directly at support@befitfood.com.au. And don't forget, if you haven't already done it, to join our Facebook group and also fill in the registration form, which we would have emailed you online. And if you want to be in the prize or want to be in the draw to win some of the prizes, feel free to send in your before and after photos. You can do it confidentially or you can do it to share. It's really good for your own tools for motivation, and it keeps people accountable. So thanks again, and book your dietitian appointment if you haven't done that as well. Thank you very much. Pleasure. Bye.